So we are Terramay, we are a 562 hectare property. We do regenerative agriculture in a holistic way, and one of our goals is to be self-sustainable in every aspect of our operation. We are fighting desertification, which has 4 pillars. The first is the natural, which disappears immediately if you don't take care of it. The second is the economical, because without nature there is no economy. Without economy, there is no society. And without society, the worst thing disappears, which is culture. The whole scope of this project was really to find a place where we feel home, where we feel safe, and with a little bit of control of the knowledge that we will leave for further generations on how to cope with this whole mess, not being so dependent on others. So that's the work we are doing, and we want to share it with the world.
Well, I'm Anna de Brito, and you are?
David de Brito, of course.
And we arrived at Terramay 6 years ago. So when we arrived here, we realized that this was kind of a deserted area in terms of you didn't have a lot of people working here, you didn't have a lot of things going on, and we realized we really want to implement a project of regenerative agriculture and sustainable hospitality.
At least 80% of the products that we are using while we're building, while we're cooking, while we're serving the community will come from our property. So that's something that we are striving for. In our restaurants right now, we have 2. We are already doing that. In Raya, we even have a 92% of self-sustainability. And at the farm, and because of this impact of the restaurants and the hospitality concept that we have to produce everything. So we produce vegetables, fruits, cereals, meat of many kinds, milk, olive oil. We transform products. We have our own concept for a big town like Lisbon with preheated meals. And that is our whole approach. So to be as self-sustainable as possible, regenerative as possible, and to bring as much food to the plate of our clients and partners and our own restaurants that represent regenerative agriculture in a manner that it's pure. Well, quite essentially, when we started Terramay, we knew that we had to build a market garden in a high top because we had the pre-existences, and that's where we're going to build up our hotel. So you never do your garden in the top of a hill. It has some advantages, like everything in life, but it's not the most common place to do it. And we had no soil at all at Terramay. So the first thing we did, because we wanted to have the garden close to the hotel, so it's the zone 0 and 1 from permaculture, we started to work with raised beds, and we got soil from many different places from the property, different kinds of soils, also to experiment with it. And the first year we could only work on raised beds because we really had no soil. So we don't have profile A, B, and C, it's just mother rock. And where we are right now, this is the result of 5 years of work, where we deliver 85 tons of vegetables per year to some of the best gardens in Portugal. We are a micro-seasonal market garden concept. We don't have winter houses, so we produce everything from the seed to the final plant. The plants are always exposed to the natural conditions of the weather, so we don't make that compromise. And we like to do something we call a polyculture within the polyculture. So be it a raised bed or now these lines that we are seeing right here, right now, we always have different cultures in the same line or next to one another. So after 5 years, we have a lot of consociations that we know that will work, that will proliferate, but also will change or give some very positive nuance in taste and texture to some of the vegetables that we are selling to the best restaurants in Portugal. So our clients are mostly Michelin-starred restaurants that can search for the best produce and have the high skilled hands to transform it into a moment of pure magic. So that's why we can also get some of our investment back, because the price of our market gardening, it's very high. So we cannot compete with the normal industrial production companies.
Yeah. To achieve this level of quality in your vegetables, you need very good soil.
Yes, definitely.
Could you talk us through the process of going from no soil to a really healthy soil with a vibrant microbial community in the soil that is nourishing your vegetables and producing such a high quality of food?
Well, you always have to take it holistically. You have to do many things to achieve that objective. But in the end, of course, the more exposed the plant is and the better the soil the plant is living in, the most dense minerally the plant will be. And I do believe that if we think of plants and the soil microbiome and the human microbiota, it's everything almost the same. So when you think that the plant is more tasteful or the aroma is stronger, that means that your bacteria within your intestine, in your gut, are just calling and craving for it. So everything walks together. In my opinion, the most important thing when you're doing a regenerative market gardening is that you have to know that per hectare you need 20 tons of organic matter. And that's when you start working. You have to find a way to produce within your collective effort, holistic effort, a way to produce this amount of organic matter. Because without that, you're not regenerative. You might be sustainable, but most likely degenerative. Because every market gardening, it's a super intensive community of plants growing and land that is being used. So that is a little bit the most difficult part, to produce the organic matter and to know how to be regenerative. There are many techniques. I think Terramay, we are not pioneers on anything besides the will and the responsibility of building up 20 tons of organic matter that will keep our soils healthy. So that's our main focus, not to lose that track, because we don't buy anything on the outside. So all of these beautiful bags of black turf that some of our friends are using, while saying they're doing regenerative market gardening, we don't do that. We do the real thing.
When you say producing 20 tons of organic matter per hectare, you mean, what do you mean exactly?
So if you have 1 hectare of a market garden, at least in our experience here, and I think it adapts to many others as well, mostly in the south of Europe, where we have much bigger temperature amplitudes, a lot of agents that are washing away the soils and most of the nutrients that we could keep on them. That has to be your focus, because every time you take a product out of a line, you have to let it rest, you have to feed the line back again, you have to cover it, give it time, 3 to 6 months without doing photosynthesis, so that you'll have so much grasses growing afterwards when you're replanting and reproducing. So in our case, what that means is that we have to use our chicken, our pigs, our cows, our horses, and everything that we're not using at our restaurants and other production units, so that we can rebring it to our market garden.
Okay, so what you're saying is that instead of bringing bags of compost from outside of the farm, you work within the farm to find nutrients.
Yes.
That you need to feed the soil in your market garden. Because obviously every time you harvest a vegetable and you take it out of the farm, you're taking nutrients out.
Exactly.
So that's what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
But so it only works because you have other operations on the farm.
Yes, imagine if you're developing a 1 hectare market gardening and you're just using that hectare, it's going to be impossible. Of course, you need somebody bringing that input to you. Of course, you can have partnerships and everything. But at Terramay, we do our chicken express compost, which is something that happens between 45 and 60 days that we can input in the garden again. We have 16 horses that are roaming freely, but we always have 2 in a box so that we can collect the organic matter they're bringing us, their presents. The same happens with our 80 mother cows and the rest of the whole bovines we have and animals. And we also do other things like terra preta. We have a vermicomposter. We do bazillions of composte. So it's a whole integrative way of looking at it, knowing that if you take out, you have to give back And at Terramay, that's what makes us a little bit different than all of the other regenerative farms. We're not just producing one thing regeneratively, we're doing it holistically. So we produce the vegetables, the animals, we have the restaurants, so in all of this circular not just economy, but organization gives us the potential to do that, which is very complicated because 20 tons of organic matter are really a lot. It's you cannot underestimate it.
And so would you say that it's almost impossible to be truly regenerative if you don't have a diversified operation that allows you to feed each other? You know, the fact that you have animals to bring in the nutrients here, that you have this to feed the restaurant, that the restaurant scraps then feed your animals. That's just one example of all of the things you're doing here.
So, well, I wouldn't be fundamentalist because that fundamentalism doesn't and absolutism doesn't bring us anything in any topic. Nevertheless, in our operation, that is a reality. If I would be a farmer in Holland with 1 hectare, just like I said, of course, I would have some friends that I trust doing different kinds of job that would bring that input. Or my choice would be to buy it from an organic turf production, industrial production unit. I don't know, there's many options. But of course, if it's integrative, it's much more interesting because you have the fully control of what you're doing. Nevertheless, we are very privileged to have 500 hectares and a diversified production unit, and of course also the investment that allows us to be a lab and to develop these over the years to achieve those objectives. If I would be depending on my market gardening to be profitable within a year, I would have to approach it in a different kind of way. Back to the micro-seasonal market gardening that we are doing without any plastic, without any inputs from the outside. One of the most important things that we have is that from our 2 restaurants and our digital business, where we do around 800,000 revenue in total over the year, we can get all of the rest products that we have into one of the most brilliant things that we developed in the last couple of years, which is our chicken compost express. This means that everything that we're using at the restaurants, at the farm that we are not selling, so all of the veggie rests and even meat, because most people don't know, but chicken are the last living dinosaurs on planet Earth. What we do is very simple, so we bring everything that we're not selling or the rest from the restaurant, we put it in the first pile. That's where the chicken come out. And of course, they're not always dependent on this kind of food. We also have our own grain that we produce, that we give them at night. And every second day they have access to fresh grass and aromatics in our mandala place over there. So we just open a different door. But besides that, they start working over there. We move the compost or the manure and rest of food every day into different piles. And it moves towards the end of the production, depending on the weather and the humidity that we have in the air, the amount of rain and all of these very demanding and dynamic aspects of our production. We might as well use water to give some humidity to the compost. But the beauty of it is that within 45 days to 60 days, we get to an end product that looks like that. And that means the brilliant part of this kind of compost is that we can use it immediately again. So while you have to wait for months when you're doing it with cow manure or with horse manure, you really have to let it sit for 6 months or 1 year, depending on what it is. Here we can be really fast. So that's why I'm really happy that we have these ladies. We have around 200 chicken. This is just a part of it. Of course, they produce eggs, but this is the main goal. So to really produce very fast, big amounts of compost that we can reintegrate in our horticulture.
Okay, we're standing now in the middle of your agroforestry system.
One of them.
One of them? Okay. Could you tell us more about it?
Okay, so we have over 55 different tree species. Within every species of tree, we have 5 different typologies because we are not building for the big industry. So we want to build for our restaurants and our hotels. So we want ripe fruit over a long period of time, so that we don't have to pick all of the fruit at the same time and work it. And also because we want that diversity. So imagine if you'd be a guest at our restaurants or even our hotel, in a space time of 15 days, you could experiment different types of peaches, for instance. And we think that's quite pleasant and interesting. Also because like this, we also have an enhanced biodiversity. And the beauty of this is that right now we're going to intensify the agroforest. So you're going to bring some more lines to make it more dense now that the first phase of the system is integrated. And what we are seeing here are just 2 lines of trees, which are integrated with some fava beans for the pig. So this is not the normal fava we consume as humans, they are for the pig. And we have on the left and on the right side some grass that will be cutted now to put back into the line of trees. And these will just be rolled down with a tractor so that we can put as much hydrogen into the soil. So this is a completely self-functional system, and the beauty of it is that we can also introduce animals. So after we put the grasses down and lower this down, some grass will come out again, and we'll bring our chicken tractors again. And normally we're speaking in 6 hectares of this agroforestry, we can have around 100 birds for 4 months, which is quite productive and interesting. The other thing that is interesting is that while we are producing perennial cultures that we can also put in the lines of trees, we do stuff like tomatoes, aromatic herbs, you name it. That's in between lines. We can produce real fava beans or potatoes. We can do strawberries. So as far as we get from our house, that's where we have the intensive regenerative market gardening, and here starts the super extensive. So this is where we produce around 10 tons of potato per year. This is where we do it.
Okay.
Or even the tomatoes. This is where we do it. So we try not to use the soil as a basis, but already a system that is working, that is perennial, and then we just add the seeds and use the structure that we built for that purpose. So like this, we don't have to dig anything. We are working under the principles of succession agroforestry and syntropic agriculture. So the most beautiful thing about this orchard is not properly that we are doing a system that many other people are doing. The beautiful thing, I think, is that in Portugal, normally Ernst Goetz would say that every orchard has to be planted from north to south so that you have maximal sun exposure for photosynthesis. That is not our problem in Alentejo. What we really need to think and sort out is the water. So instead of doing these north to south lines, we did it in keyline, which is a method that allows you to adjust a little bit the level curves, and like this we can withhold much more water. It's super effective, it's very cheap, and that's something that I would advise to everybody to do as long as they have the mechanics of the orchard under control.
Okay.
So if you are completely depending on a tractor to go around and do the whole work, of course this method is not the best. But if you do it like we do, with almost no intervention, everything almost done by hand, then it's really amazing the enhance of water infiltration that you can do by designing your orchard like this. So I think that's the most beautiful. The rest is like most other people are doing. So different canopy sizes and different functions within the line, trees that lose leaves in the summer and give light to the others that have a lower straight. So we just follow the books adapted to our reality. I think that what is really curious about our intervention is the keyline design, and that we produce a lot of food annuals within the system.
You said that you have 55 different species of trees growing. Do you also have pioneer trees that are just there for boosting the ecosystem, but without producing any
So we have the first 2, always. I don't recall the name in English, but the first really grows, as you can see in the images, quite fast. That's the first pioneer. Then we have a second one that has the same, or will achieve the same height, but it will take much longer. And that's when we come to the part which is a little bit of hocus pocus in the successive agroforestry design, or even also syntropic agriculture, because what we do is that when the second tree achieves the height that we understand is important for us, we start doing also epic cuttings in the first trees, so that they send a message of stress to all of the other living organisms in the soil, and the succession starts to happen. So
Wow.
when we planted these trees, we used mycorrhiza, so we put all of the roots into mycorrhiza, and they were planted like this just to support this element of communication. You get like a different atmosphere, different shades than you get in a different place, because we are really creating an ecosystem that it's not common to see anywhere. It's really making a mimic of nature in a very productive way.
Yeah.
So I really advise this to everybody that wants to do a regenerative, sustainable, or organic approach to their orchards. And the only limitations you have is how do you structure yourself industrially. So if you're selling for a supermarket and you need the perfect ripe fruit in that day of the year, these will be much more expensive and technically demanding. But if you have an approach of farm to table, if you have your direct customers, the output you take is much more than the input, because everything is living from the same system. As I was saying before, this that we are planting here, it's feeding the soil. These herbs that we have here is what is going to cover our lines during the summer. So everything is very integrative. And while you're pruning, you're doing the same.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. It's very beautiful, it's very motivating, but of course it takes a lot of work and attention and knowledge. And then it's time. For instance, here we're looking at Artemisia, a grass, because we're now designing a new system. We're doing it with Mark from Quinta das Abelhas in Freixo do Meio. He's amazing. I think he's the most known disciple from syntropic agriculture. He's trying to make just what they were doing in Ojos de Agua in Bahia, in Brazil, in a Mediterranean context. And it is insane, because as we know, trees are the only living being that can change the climate in a small place. No? Through expiration, transpiration, they can create their own climate. And that's what we are hoping here. Of course, very careful, without many expectations, but we believe so. And this Artemisia, it's quite interesting because it's a perennial. It has a lot of potential. It's very healthy as well. But it's one of these herbs that you can have in your line and will allow you not to have so much spontaneous growth of other cultures. So it will take some of the minerals that most of the spontaneous herbs we have here need, and it will make a cover crop which is beautiful, aromatic, and helping in many senses. So not just with the herbs, but also if you smell it, it's really an all-round, let's call it, or a roundup, because it performs in many ways also with little animals and things that normally are a problem for trees. It helps a lot. So you learn some tricks to reduce your work, but it's pretty intense, and everything gets back to the same. So what is the most important is that you give back to the trees and to your soil always what you took out. So you have to be much more worried about what you're putting in after you take out.
Yeah.
In this kind of products, because if you fail in that, then you cannot produce anymore. That's the most important.
Yeah. So people say you are what you eat, but then your trees are what you feed them too.
Yes, I heard lately, so we are producing a festival called Soil to Soul in Switzerland and in Portugal, and we say that you are what you eat. And lately I heard a guy that started a different concept, and he finalized his speech by saying, so maybe we are what we ate. Which is already very awkward and irritating to hear, because when you say we are what we eat, it goes back to the soil.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a philosophical way of saying if you don't respect where you come from or what you step into, it won't be good.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the base of life and our existence. And of course, we forgot it. So we are what we eat, and yeah, that's it. But it goes much deeper to the soil and to the soul than just what we are conventionally eating every day. So it's much more than that. Yeah. Another thing that we eat is also hope.
Yeah.
That's also one of the things that keeps us moving.
And that's an important part of what you're doing here. It's not just regenerating the ecosystem on your farm, but it's also...
Well, it's a drop of hope. I was a consultant, so I was a kind of a Darth Vader before. I did everything to make money, not knowing that I was harming other people sometimes. And I stumbled upon a TED talk from Alan Savory where he was talking about desertification. And it came quite clear to me that desertification is not only natural. So without nature, there is no economy. And if you have no economy, people have to move somewhere else to find their labor, to find some food, to find something to subsist. Without people, we don't have society. And the problem is that if you don't have society, you also don't have culture. And that's what we've been gathering in the last 12,000 years since we are farmers and since the Holocene came towards us. Changed everything. And I just realized by having 3 kids that I didn't want it to work anymore just to make the money I was making, which was good and it was comfortable and it was brilliant. But I said from that moment on, it was around 6 years before we bought and founded the farm, Terramay, that I wanted to do something positive for the future of my kids, because this land doesn't belong to us. It was lent to us by our succession, so we have to give it in a better condition, or at least the same, to our children than we just got it for ourselves. So in that sense, that's the work we're doing here. So we're trying to create a drop of hope that shows that it's possible to do regenerative agriculture while healing the soil, bringing communities back to desertified locations with a strong circular economy that is self-sustainable. So it's not about being multimillionaires with regenerative agriculture. You can do it in a different way. I think it's easier to lose money with agriculture than to make it. And hopefully to motivate a lot of people to become farmers and to carry on this work, which is so essential for the future, because in the whole of Europe, you have less than 10% of the farmers are under 40. In Portugal, that goes down to 6. If we speak of parity, there are 3% of women farming in Europe. That's nothing, because agriculture is not sexy. And regenerative agriculture, which nobody believes in, that's always the first question in conventions. Could you feed the world with regenerative agriculture? Of course not. But it's not because regenerative agriculture doesn't have everything we need to do it. It's just because only 8% of the farmers in Europe are doing organic farming, and 2% of them are using regenerative, a regenerative skill set or tools. So if we would enhance regenerative farming or this way of being in the world to a much bigger scale, of course it would be possible. And not only because there would be food enough, but also because one tomato from regenerative agriculture might have at least 8 times as much nutrient and vitamin density as any other food that we might intake. Plus, it doesn't have all of the antibiotics and bullshit that big companies that are the ones that are producing the seeds that feed us and the medicaments that are healing us. So it's a completely dead end, the way we are farming today, from the seed to the method and the food and the medicaments that are treating us, because it's not going to work many years anymore. There will be a collapse very soon. It makes no sense. So that's why we are here, to prove that it is possible to have a kind of a circular economy that will allow us to prepare mankind for a dramatic rise on temperature and a weather complexity that we humans will never understand. Because we're for instance in Portugal this year we're having heavy rains of 20 millimeters in the 1st of May. In the last 10 years that never happened. And It's not that it's good or bad. We just have to understand what is going to happen and start to develop strategies that will allow us to take the best out of it when it happens.
Yeah. I have to say, I completely agree with you, and that's the exact reason why I'm here today.
Mhm.
And I also changed career, and I'm spending all my time trying to bring the stories of pioneer regenerative farmers to as many people as possible, because I am convinced that we need to advance. We need as many people as possible to learn how to farm regeneratively, because we're going to need it for future generations. So for sure,
Yeah, sure.
completely agree with that. And it's great to see people like you who are leading the way in showing that it's possible to produce a high quantity of food, high quality of food, high nutrient density, regenerating the ecosystem at the same time, creating jobs, local jobs.
Because we forget a lot that agriculture was the first culture that mankind talked about, or at least the first translation in that sense. And it's the base of everything, because I also believe that that's how we developed into mankind. It was because our real brain is not exactly here, it's the gut. And it was through feeding ourselves that we developed ourselves, because we developed a memory, and in that sense, the only thing that we have to do, because it's not even that we are learning new techniques. In many cases, we are going back to something that we knew before. The only problem is that we're forgetting it, because most of us are living in a kind of a fight between the real life and the digital world. And digital world is very crazy, because it gives you the feeling that you don't need to know shit, because you have everything, all of the power of the world in your hand. And it's not true. We are completely depending on many factors. In Portugal, just happened 2 days ago, before we are here together, we had a cutout of power, which was general in the whole country, and also Spain. And who can tell us that that is not going to happen again? And if it happens for 4 days, you know what happens? There is no internet, there is no light, there is no food, there is no transportation, there is no shit. So either you are in a self-sufficient environment, or you'll have a lot of problems. And that's what we have to think as well globally, is to go out of this vanity, insane craziness of globalization, because it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So we have every land, every continent. It doesn't mean that we have to stop communicating and sharing and proliferating together, but it means that we have to have some level of self-sustainability, so that we can ensure our subsistence when problems that we cannot control come toward us. And that will happen even more often in the future. And sometimes we just forget that we are completely depending on what this insane and crazy succession of events that brought us to the earth as a living I don't even know how to say it, but to exist in a universe where we are alone, it's depending on other things than ourselves.
Yeah.
So we have to be humble, and instead of taking the most out of the land, we have to nurture it and be part of the system. So that's what we are doing here. We do a lot of mistakes, we lose a lot of money, but it never felt so good.
Awesome. That was great. That was great. Love it. Love it. It's amazing. Just a quick pause to tell you about the official partner of the Deep Seed podcast, and that's Soil Capital. Soil Capital is a company that accelerates the transition to regenerative agriculture by financially rewarding farmers who improve the health of their soils. They are an incredible company. I love what they're doing, and I'm super proud to be partnering with them for the Deep Seed podcast. So we're with the cows here. We have the breed that's called Mertulenga. It's from Mertula, like a city south of here. It's an old breed that is highly adapted to that climate, meaning it's a small cow with short legs, has less water consumption. They are like the goats of the cows. They don't have problems with steep hills or an environment that is more challenging. They continue grazing even with 40 degrees, like they are really robust. In 3 years working here, I think 2 times a cow was sick,
Like we don't have any problems. They give birth alone. They're very, it's a very strong cow. The downside is a bit they're very shy. They can be nervous. In small spaces they turn quickly aggressive, and so it's not the easiest cow to handle. Although they seem very chill now. But also by the type of management, since we're working very close with them and moving them almost daily, they adapt and getting more calm. Like compared to when I started here, they were way more nervous. They occur in 3 colors. Like you have the Malhado, that's with the white base and then the brown dots. You have Rosilio, when the brown and white like kind of mingle into each other, like this one over here, for example. And then you have Vermelho, that are the brown ones. They are now since 2 years completely grass-fed, grass-finished, meaning there's no food, not even hay or whatever coming from outside, except the neighbor where we sometimes cut the grass because he's not doing it, and then we have some hay. But it's all from here. Yeah, meat-wise, it's not the easiest to cook because they are athletes. They don't have much intermuscular fat, and it's a special taste.
Yeah. So you said that they're in very good health.
Yeah.
You attribute that to the breed or to the management, or both?
Both, I would say. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. How does this type of management contribute to the health of the cows?
So we're working in a holistic or multi-paddock grazing system, or call it what you want to call it. Meaning we keep them close together, we move them regularly to prevent overgrazing and to imitate what ruminants would do in the wild, with predators keeping them together. So here it's us, since there are no predators. Meaning they eat very diverse because they are in this group effect. It's like having 8 siblings on the table. You don't choose anymore what you eat, you just eat.
Yeah.
So meaning they have a very diverse diet. They don't nibble only on certain plants. They usually eat more diverse, which is a key factor of nutrients in the meat too. They don't get any medication except the mandatory vaccines. We stopped deworming them since they are moving all the time. The life cycle of until the parasite in the shit develops, the cow is already gone. Like there is no chance that the worm can keep on going.
Could you give us a little bit more technical detail about how you plan your rotational grazing system, the size of the paddocks compared to the number of cows, how long you leave them, how often you move them, all of that?
So the whole farm is divided into sectors which have different sizes. It's more like where we have fixed fencing, and also what makes sense from looking at the land, from water access and so on. And they always enter a sector which then is divided again by electric fencing like we see here. And depending on the season, depending on the number of cows, and depending on what we want right now from the land, the size and the frequency of moving changes. So for example, right now we're in a phase end of the growing season, but this year we still, like yesterday, we still had rain, end of April. And we have perfect temperatures now, around 20 degrees. It's amazing for grass. So I don't want the cow to go very slow and eat until the ground, because I want the regeneration to happen really quick, so I can go another time. So now we have the last pastures where I will go one more time. And soon I will start my last round, which then is very slow, very tiny, the paddocks, so that the cow eats and tramples everything, so we have a nice layer of mulch on the soil. But right now I just want them to light graze, eat the tops, do some disturbance, and then out again, so that the grass can still one more time regrow until we enter the summer.
Okay, so how do you decide all of these different factors? How do you know how long to leave them for and how many to have in what size and all of that? Do you monitor that? Do you have a specific...
Yeah, we have a plan, we have a grazing plan, and then we have different factors. For example, in the beginning of the season, you have still slow grass growth, especially this year. For example, December, we didn't have any rain. And then you want to gain time, right? So you make also the pasture small. You try to, then I was counting hours. I try to let them as long as possible in there before moving, to gain a day or two at one point. And then now there's abundance of food. So as I explained, you want the grass. It's always about what's best for the soil and how can I generate more food in a natural way, obviously. And then of course there are appointments like the doctor is coming or we wean or whatever. So you have all these appointments, you have holidays, people are going to holidays. So maybe then you also have to adapt a little bit, making the pastures bigger or go slower or whatever suits. And then you write your plan with all your appointments and important things happening, and hope the weather is playing along. And then you write your plan and hope that it works more or less.
Okay, yeah.
It's a system that works very well, especially in because this farm is very heterogeneous. Like it's very diverse. Like you have steep hills, you have some places that are more flat, you have places with more trees, with less trees. Like it's a hard to manage a land that's hard to manage because it's extremely diverse. And the cows are, especially this breed, is a very nice tool to get to all the spots because most of the farm is only suitable for grazing with the right animal because, as I said, it's steep, rocky, whatever, and they never broke a leg or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're very well adapted, as I said already. And you can scale it, like if it's 80 or 120 cows or 200, there are some points where you have way more work, but in general, it's not changing much. Mm-hmm. And this is also why this is very interesting because of the scalability compared to other operations where every hectare more means another employee. And this is what makes it very different, interesting.
Yeah. Does it take a lot of work to manage the cows, to move them every day, to deal with?
No. If I would only do the cows, it wouldn't be a full-time employment.
Yeah.
With daily moving.
Yeah.
As soon as the cows have learned the system, if they know, okay, when the guy comes and shouts, we move, so they play along, then it's quite easy in the daily basis. I think it's one of the most important or most effective ways to do regeneration because of the scalability. A lot of land is not suited for anything else than animals. It's important to integrate the animals again. We destroyed so much of nature's natural functions that we have to again bring that back to the land. And since everything is fenced off, there are no predators anymore, we have now to play a key role in that. And if you eat meat or not, there's nothing bad about this. And it's important to integrate animal in the landscapes more and more. Yeah, and I think it's a very rewarding job to do.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have black pigs. The most important thing for these pigs is like the montañera, like the time from September, October till February, March, when all the acorns drop from the trees. And this is where the pig thrives the most. And this is also, by the end of that time, you want to butcher them.
Do you also sort of graze them rotationally, change the pastures every so often? How does it work?
Here it's more like an extensive grazing system. I was talking about the sectors. So far, they move between sectors. I want to experiment more with the electric fencing, but especially during the acorn season, they are extremely focused on the acorns, and respecting fencing is a difficult thing. So far they move between the sectors.
Yeah, so they have a wider space to move through.
And slower, slower. And also with the pigs, and during summer they stay at one spot. So they will move again, but then they stay somewhere down at Alkeva where they have easy access to water. And because this is then the main problem in summer, they can't cool their bodies without water. So it makes it way more difficult to keep them moving in the summer when some of the lakes dry out and so on. And also the pig has very strong habits, like where they sleep, where they shit, where they do whatever. So also a daily movement is maybe harder to adapt them to it, whilst with the cows, for example, it's easier. Okay. So this is also why we move in sectors, so they have at least 2-3 weeks at one bigger place where they wander around before then they move to the next one. They don't overgraze so quickly because they dig, they eat insects, they eat a little flower here, then they find an acorn. It's not like they have their favorite grass, which they continuously overgraze. I don't know if you saw that hillside. They can open the soil quite a lot. And then you have to be careful with that. That can be helpful because it can activate the seed bank. It can help to get some of the grass away so the young trees have more space to grow. But there's also a big danger of erosion. If they're too long at one spot, you have this moon landscapes with a lot of erosion.
And so you said that once a year they eat the acorns. Maybe you could explain that in a bit more detail and explain the ecosystem we're in now. And
as far as I know, this whole Montado system with the oaks, is man-made, and these pigs kind of developed or are extremely well adapted to eating these acorns. They can transform it extremely well, and this is when they take on weight like crazy. And it also, like in the taste of the meat, you have this nuttiness, which people love a lot. This is why they buy the ham from it. So that's the most important thing with these pigs, that they have access to the acorns.
Yeah, it's a way of making the most of resources you have on the farm. Since it's a Montado ecosystem, you have these oak trees. Some of them give acorns, and there's very few things you can actually do with these acorns. Other animals don't eat them.
There are like Freixo do Meio, for example. They have a beautiful Montado, and they harvest them, and they make flour out of it, coffee. There are a lot of products you can do. It's very healthy for human consumption too. But since our Montado has suffered a lot from, I think, over generations already. We were talking about the goats. They were roaming around freely here for a lot of time before the farm got founded. We have a bit of a problem with the trees. We have a lot of old trees which are slowly dying, and we have this generational gap to the younger trees. So it wouldn't make sense to start collecting acorns here, because you need a dense Montado with a lot of acorns on the ground, and then with some kind of machinery you can pick a lot. Okay, so because the land here before you arrived and started this management, Terramay, as a team, the land was being overgrazed for a long time by sheep. That's goats, by goats, and therefore the old big trees who were already there, they were well established and protected, but all of the younger ones were prevented from growing, and that's why you don't have this succession of young trees. That's one of the reasons,
right? And I guess by using this kind of management with pigs and using the acorns in that way, you focus more on regenerating the ecosystem and on the pig production rather than the acorn production itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess the important part here is that they can activate seed banks. What I was saying, if you have a very dense layer of grass and the cows go through and they open up the soil a bit, you often see young oaks not having problems going through a thick layer of grass. And the pigs, they don't touch young trees really. Maybe accidentally they dig one out. But what I observed, that's not really an issue. And when they open these spots, you often see some young oaks that are still standing and now suddenly have a lot of space and light. And then again, they eat different things than the cows. So if you have them first, they will already eliminate some of the acorns. You make a better use of what you have, maybe to put it like that. So they will eat what is most important to them, and then the cow comes and they will just cut the rest.
They're quite complementary to each other. They have a different impact on the soil, on the land.
I think in this ecosystem,
So basically we are on the Alqueva. It's the biggest artificial lake in Europe. It was created, I'm not quite sure, I think 15 to 18 years ago. And you see from here, it's Portugal, it's the border to Portugal, and there's Spain. So it's based on the river Guadiana, Rio Guadiana, which basically starts in Spain and passes through Portugal. And it has always been the border river between Portugal and Spain.
So cool. So we're really here in the middle, like we're in the water. On one side we have Portugal, on the other side we have Spain.
Exactly.
How cool is that?
Exactly, and as you see, there's almost like nothing. You see, it's just hills, trees, nature, but it's not. You don't see a lot of buildings, or it's not really developed, and I think it's amazing. And you hear the silence. Yeah, you can go fishing. There's a lot of water activities, which we also are currently involving with a small boat. Okay. We also have 2 canoes, so whoever visits us, and as our guest, it's always a possibility to make a canoe trip or to take the boat to Raya, to the restaurant, or have a picnic or something. So yeah, we also tailor specific experiences which we combine with food and sustainable gastronomy on the boat, because we think it's a very nice experience connecting people with nature, and it's beautiful.
So this is another way to diversify your business model. You have
Sure.
different.
Definitely, because I think regenerative agriculture is our main base core, right? That's the core operations. That's why we came here. It's all about the farm. We really want to show that regenerative agriculture is possible, to put it in practice, and we are actually living it. But also you need to show it to people, right? You need to have people over, you need to receive guests, you need to give them the possibility to be part of the whole things, to participate in workshops, to go to the garden, to be part of a harvest. So basically it's our interpretation of connection with nature and connection to regenerative agriculture and sustainable hospitality. There's also a certain, I won't say craziness, but you really need to focus on that, and you really need to believe that it's possible that this is going to flourish one day, right? And that this is actually working. And so there's a lot of courage from all of us involved to really say, okay, let's really try to walk the talk. Let's really try to change something. Let's really do that step, move here, and try to show that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a massive change in your life, right? You're going from the city, having kids, to moving to a different country in a very remote area, starting a farm from scratch. It's a completely different life. It's a big step. So first of all, where did the decision come from? And then how did you experience all of that big change?
For us, it was clear, okay, David is Portuguese, so there was always the connection, right? And I lived 4 years in Lisbon in my 20s, so I really admire the country. I really love I think there's a great life quality in this, and we already had 2 kids that time in Berlin, and I thought like, okay, they're very, how can I say, conditioned in the urbanized reality, right? They wake up and it's always like, no. It's red light, you cannot go here, you cannot do this, so it's always no, restricted. And I think like there is more specifically to the next generation, which has to confront a lot of challenges. There is climate change, let's not go into that because this would really probably be too much for this format, but it's a very, I won't say frightening, but challenging reality which my kids are going to face and the next generation is going to face. So I think it's really important that they connect to nature, that they know where they're coming from, and that they know that they grow strong in a way. And we wanted to give them that possibility. We really wanted to give them the possibility to nourish, to be connected and to thrive in a natural ecosystem and know that. And it's a skill set which is really important for them to have. And we talked about this, and Thomas was really enthusiastic. And of course, when Thomas said, okay, let's go, the whole plan grew a bit bigger. So then we were traveling around, visited a lot of different properties, also in Algarve, different properties and possibilities in whole Portugal. Yeah, and actually fell in love with this beautiful spot here in El Androal, because it's really, really far away from a lot of things. It has the connection to Spain. It has these 2 kilometers of water line. Yeah, so it was the perfect setup.
Amazing.
Yeah, but for sure. And David was always the one really pushing for it ideologically. Like, okay, we really have to go there. We have to make a change. And really wanted to be one of the pioneers in making the difference, and walking the talk. And but when we arrived, of course, coming from Berlin, I'm from Berlin, it was a difference, a very strong difference. And I told the story before, but I think it's funny to tell again. So we arrived here, and there was this caretaker couple working with us, and I was like, okay, we are really remote, and where are we exactly? How is this going to happen? How is this going to turn out? And there was a moment we were playing with the kids outside in the garden, and she said like, shh, everybody shut up. And I said, kids, be silent, be silent. And she just put her foot on the ground, and she took up a snake with her bare hand, lighted a cigarette and said, kids, come over, it's time for you guys to learn about snakes. So I said like, wow, this is a lot of Calamity Jane power.
Wow.
And I really need to adapt to that reality. But in the end, it's beautiful, and it's really interesting, because if you move out of your comfort zone, you grow, and you realize that there's so much power within you and all of us, which is like kind of covered up when you're always living the routine.
Is it hard sometimes being so far away from bigger cities, from more people, more urban areas?
Sure. It's not always just a romanticized version. Definitely not. There's a lot of moments of questioning, is this the right decision, or also loneliness, because you're very far away, you're very not connected. I'm not so much connected like I was before to my family, my sister, my friends. So of course there is this lack of social life, but yes, in the last 2 or 3 years I really felt this changing, because we worked so hard for it to grow and for this whole project to thrive, and I think we made it somehow possible to attract really interesting, very inspiring people which are working with us. So, and which joined the project, right? So you met Elias, and you met Lena, you met a lot of people already on our farm and on the different places. And with all of these people, with all of our friends and people which are working with us and fighting with us to make this project work, this would never work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many millions you would put in it. In the end, it's the people who believe in it. It's the true energy. The people push into it, put into it. Well, so we decided 3 years ago to open Raya, the restaurant, first of all, because we already had created the farm. The first farm operations were running. We had the animals, the chicken, the cows, and our market gardening already implemented. And we saw everything growing, and it was already there. And we were, of course, developing ways to make it work in terms of sales. And we had an important restaurant and great restaurant partners, which are our partners until today. Diogo Formiga from Encanto, very nice chefs and very nice restaurants, sustainable restaurants. Of course, Lara and George from Lisbon, and also in Évora, a lot of nice partners. So we started selling our products basically to these kind of restaurant partners. And but also, since we were challenging the garden and the whole farm project itself, we were also challenging ourselves in terms of, okay, regenerative agriculture is one part we want to do. It's one main part of the whole project, but the other is sustainable gastronomy and sustainable hospitality. And we really thought we want to make our own experiences in that field, and we also wanted a concrete outlet. And then it was funny. And then the mayor from Landral came to us and said, well, we're developing this great praia fluvial. So it's a beach place here at Azenes del Rei in Monjuntos. And he said, yeah, well, there's this restaurant, and don't you guys want to do something with it? It's a very beautiful space, so probably it would be a good fit. And we were like, okay, it's quite of an operational hustle. And we said, but yeah, we jumped into it, and it was really a great experience. Challenging, of course, and not that easy, but amazing, because we really had to get better and learn a lot how to produce in accordance to a kitchen, and also to find the right people to work with, right? Because it's not, usually you're a chef and you design your menu, and then you just order from Macro, or you order your stuff from wherever. And here it's different, so you really need to find these kind of chefs and people which are truly in this for real and really believe in this sustainable kind of gastronomy, and they say, no, I'm just cooking with whatever I get from the garden. And this is also challenging, but very, very interesting.
Yeah. So how much of the food that's being cooked here, the restaurant, comes directly from your farm?
So it's 90%. We have a reduced cart, a reduced menu at Raya. Very seasonal, micro-seasonal. We change every 3-4 weeks basically, or sometimes 2 months, depending a bit on the season. And yeah, as I said before, what we don't grow in the farm, it won't show up here in the restaurant. And yeah, the other 10%, of course, is the river fish. We work with a local fisherman from here, and he's providing us with an amazing pike perch from the lake, which is extremely delicious and culinary-wise very, very interesting, very underestimated also. And and the rest is just a very small percentage of, I don't know, rice, and this kind of vinegar, which we don't produce yet.
Okay, yeah. You were mentioning earlier the fact that this area has been deserted by young people and people in general, and you're part of a movement to bring back people to this area, and the restaurant is part of that. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, sure. Because I mean, it's a fact. For instance, when our latest son was born, Rafael, is also your name, the old lady of the village, Rosario, she started to cry, and she said, "Wow, it's the first time since 4 or 5 years that a baby is born in this area."
Yeah, okay.
So of course, it's just old people that stayed behind, and the young people just left to the cities. And this is a demographic phenomenon you see everywhere around Europe. And people feel very, how can I say that, left behind here, and sometimes they feel, it's a bit what is my impression of the cultural impact here. They feel that, okay, what the people in the government say and the politicians, I don't believe anything anyway, so they stay really closed in their own bubble. And on the other hand, you have these overpopularized, really dense centers in the cities, where people are also sometimes feel like in a hamster wheel because they're just running, and why are you all doing all that? So there's really a gap of a connection. Where does all the food come from, and how can you connect with nature, and what does that do to you when you connect stronger with nature? And that means it can be something very simple, like going to the garden, picking your own food, and washing your salad, and just providing food for yourself and your family or your friends or whoever, or just for yourself. And it's a very healing and inspiring and nourishing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in that sense, we realized when we opened the place here that this is a very left behind area. So the whole desertification part is happening in the soil, it's happening in the country, the soils are getting eroded. This is what we talk about in the farm also. But also the social desertification is a very big phenomenon and a big problem here, because you don't have enough workers, you don't have enough young talent. People need to come back here and make this place thrive.
Yeah.
And that was also something we tried to do, yeah.
Yeah. You're a bit like a pioneer tree, right? In a rebuilding ecosystem.
We try.
That is feeding, the ecosystem, that is building it back up so that other plants can come and thrive in that ecosystem, right? It's like the parallel I have in my head.
Yes, of course. I mean, yeah, sure. And sometimes you also realize that these kind of projects, they're bigger than yourself. And of course, first of all, this would never be possible without all of these people which are actually bringing their energy in here together. I mean, you guys are also coming here. Something also must have kind of fascinated you or interested you to come here to visit us, so we're having this conversation right now. So yes, people are interested in making a change, and now the question is, how should that work? And yeah, it definitely starts through coming together and talking about how we could make it happen, actually.
So now that you've integrated the restaurant as part of your business model, and you have food going straight from the farm and to the restaurant, do you also close a cycle with, I don't know, like food scraps and things like that, going back to the farm, being composted and so on?
Yes, sure, we do. First of all, because we think it's super important to get all the products which we have from the farm here. So there's always a small part when we prepare the vegetables, for instance, that goes straight away to the chicken, right? You clean a bit, and the first things, there's always the first selection goes to the animal and stays in the system. But of course, we have the leftovers here from the restaurant, also the coffee leftovers, and where we have developed a quite complex and interesting, really intriguing, and for me personally very fascinating compost system. So on the farm, all the leftovers from the restaurants are coming back, and they're reintegrated in the cycle. So they go to the chicken compost, and then they get piled from one place to the other, and the chickens are doing their part with the worms, and it's a very interesting biomass which we create, and it's a neutral, it's a very organic, very incredible soil enricher, and it's such a power. It's like a superfood for the garden, and it's one of our key elements for the market garden.
That's incredible. So you're organic, regenerative, circular,
yes,
and more or less zero waste. I mean,
yes,
going towards zero waste. That's an impressive combination of different elements.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was also the reason why we got rewarded with the Wakama Boamese Sustainability Prize last year. And yeah, I mean, of course, we have to still get better, and there's still a lot of still of optimization to do within the process of what we plant at the farm, how to bring it here. and the whole circle. And I think it's important because if you are feeding people, right, and that is the main objective of a restaurant, you're feeding people, but you also have a responsibility through the planet and the next generation. So you cannot just leave a trash bag pile of plastic garbage behind.
So, in the same way that a really healthy ecosystem is really diverse, would you say that a healthy regenerative business also needs to be very diverse? Is that the reason why you're trying to be so diversified in your business model?
No, it's much easier to have a monoculture or an entrepreneurial monoculture than to have this super diversified business. Of course, if you are diversified, if one thing is not working, the other might work, so you have a better balance. But one thing is to do one thing or two or three or to do 250 like we do. And that's the complex thing, because the whole production is a science. The whole transformation of it, it's also a science. The whole chain of value of that market is a science. And then you still have to market it. And if you have 100 products and you have to go through many ways and different kinds of fill some different kinds of gaps, it becomes very difficult. Plus our price, it's very high. So if I would advise any regenerative agriculture person that wants to make the change or to come into this business, I would streamline it in one business. I would make it profitable and then bring the next streamline carefully chosen within their own context. So the possibilities are only depending on the capability of investment, the infrastructure. So this is a dream that can be pretty quickly a nightmare. So you have to prepare yourself. So what I would advise is, depending on if you're buying a property or if you have a business, make the change. It makes sense in all aspects. I could enumerate 5 in 10 seconds. But to diversify as much as we do is not the best example, because it takes a lot of investment. It's very important to make one step after the other and to ask people that already made that path what are the opportunities. But in every sense and means, a regenerative operation makes completely sense, because you do much less of the work, unless you are doing market gardening. And the output is much better. So in that sense, it's beautiful. And then you keep on adding complexity if you want. So that's what I would say regarding the economics of the operation. Nevertheless, the potential is immense, because as we are putting together agriculture with tourism, as soon as things start working together, they are already working, we already do very interesting revenue figures as well for such a small operation. But the thing is, as soon as things change and move and it becomes really circular, then the revenue potential is immense.
Awesome.
There's this Indian proverb of, we don't inherit the world from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And yeah, this is a message that is to all of us. So if we, each and every one of us takes a small moment and be aware of how we source our food, how to make the difference, how to inspire. You guys are also here, you're here to spread the message, you're inspiring people.
Thank you so much for hosting us here on the farm for a couple of days. It's been absolutely beautiful. We loved it. The place is beautiful. The food is amazing. You guys have been incredible hosts. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for sharing this knowledge with us and with all of the listeners and the viewers of the Deep Seed podcast. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.